Welcome back to Secrets Exposed. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. You're the reason these stories worth sharing. Tell us where you're watching from, city or country. We're amazed by how far these tales reach. Subscribe our channel and press bell icon to get daily new and amazing stories for you. Alright, let's begin. The house was silent except for the steady tick of the clock on the nightstand. Mark stirred in his sleep, restless, his hand reaching across the bed instinctively. Cold sheets. Empty space. Claire hadn't returned yet. She'd left earlier that evening, her words sharp, her eyes heavy with the weight of another argument neither of them knew how to resolve. He told himself not to dwell on it. Not tonight. Exhaustion pulled at his bones, and eventually, he surrendered to sleep. Then the shrill vibration of his phone split the quiet. It wasn't the casual buzz of a late-night notification. It was a call. At this hour? His hand fumbled across the table, knocking over a glass of water before he finally grabbed the device. The screen glowed against the dark room, and his breath caught when he saw the name. Ethan. His son never called in the middle of the night. Something was wrong. Mark swiped the screen instantly. Ethan? What's going on? His voice was rough with sleep, but there was already a hint of alarm. Silence crackled on the line. Then, a voice, small, trembling, carrying a weight no child should bear. Dad! Ethan whispered, barely audible. Don't hang up. There's a man standing at my window. Mark shot upright, the sheet falling from his body. His heart slammed against his ribs. What? Ethan, what do you mean? He's just standing there. Ethan's voice quivered, almost breaking. He's watching me. He hasn't moved for a long time. Mark's throat tightened. He could hear the boy's shallow breathing, the quiver in his words. Ethan wasn't making this up. He wasn't dreaming. His son was terrified, right now, inside that dark room all alone. I want you to listen to me, buddy, Mark said quickly, trying to steady his voice. Stay away from the window. Don't make a sound. Keep me on the phone, okay? I'm coming right now. He didn't wait for a reply. He yanked on the pair of jeans crumpled on the chair and shoved his feet in his sneakers without socks. His fingers trembled as he grabbed his keys from the dresser. His eyes flicked once more toward the empty bed. Claire's absence felt louder now, more noticeable, but there was no time to think about it. The storm outside greeted him with a cold slap as he ran to the car. Sheets of rain poured down, drenching him within seconds. He slid into the driver's seat, slammed the door shut, and jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. Dad! Ethan's voice was faint but still on the line. I'm here, Ethan. I'm driving now. Just stay with me, all right? Tell me if he moves. Mark pressed harder on the gas, tires hissing against the wet asphalt. His knuckles turned white around the wheel. Every second felt like an eternity. His son's words replayed in his head. A man standing at my window. What kind of person would do that? Why Ethan's window? And where the hell was Claire? The questions collided violently inside his mind, but one truth anchored him. Ethan needed him. Right now, and nothing else mattered. The highway stretched ahead, swallowed in fog and rain. Mark leaned forward, straining to see through the windshield as his wipers fought to keep up. His chest rose and fell with ragged breaths, each one heavier than the last. Somewhere in the distance, the faint glow of their neighborhood lights flickered into view. He pressed harder on the accelerator, silently praying he wasn't too late. The rain hammered harder as Mark's car tore down the road, the wipers screeching back and forth in a desperate rhythm. His eyes stung from staring into the blur of headlights and water. He kept glancing at the glowing phone screen on the passenger seat, terrified the call would drop. Dad! Ethan's whisper floated through again. He's still there. He hasn't moved. Mark's stomach clenched. He pressed his foot down, the tires spitting water behind him. The image of his son, small and alone, staring at a figure outside his window, gnawed at his chest like a blade. Ethan, listen to me carefully, he said, forcing his voice calm even though his pulse thundered. Don't open the window. Don't go near it. Just stay on the bed. Keep me on the line. A shaky breath came through the receiver. What if he comes inside? Mark's jaw tightened. He won't. I won't let him. Just a little longer, buddy. I'm almost there. He tried to believe it himself. Almost there. Almost. The storm thrashed against his car as he left the highway and turned into the familiar roads leading home. The street lamps flickered in the downpour, casting sickly orange halos on the wet pavement. Mark's mind, however, was already racing ahead, imagining scenarios he didn't want to imagine. What if the figure wasn't just standing there? What if he had already tried to get in? What if Ethan wasn't alone anymore? Mark shook the thoughts away, gripping the steering wheel tighter. He needed to stay clear. For Ethan, as he swerved into the neighborhood, every house stood silent, windows dark, curtains drawn against the storm. Except one, his house, Ethan's room. A faint light glowed through the upstairs window. The sight sent both relief and dread through him. At least Ethan was there, but so was the shadow he swore he'd glimpsed moving across that glass. He killed the headlights before pulling into the driveway, heart hammering. Rain cascaded down the windshield, making it harder to see. He leaned forward, squinting. Yes, there was movement behind the curtain. Slow, deliberate. Dad, Ethan's voice cracked. I'm here. I see the house. Stay quiet, all right? Don't make a sound. Mark slipped the phone into his pocket and flung the car door open. The storm instantly swallowed him, rain soaking through his clothes as his sneakers slapped against the flooded concrete. Every sound seemed amplified. The thunder, the pounding water, even the frantic rhythm of his own heart. He fumbled with the keys at the front door, cursing when one slipped from his trembling hand and splashed into a puddle. His pulse quickened as he finally shoved the right key in and twisted. The lock clicked, and the door swung open into darkness. The silence inside the house was suffocating. No hum of the fridge, no creak of the heater. Just a heavy, unnatural stillness broken only by the storm outside. Ethan, Mark whispered into the dark hallway. No reply. He closed the door behind him and took a cautious step forward, every board creaking beneath his weight. The phone in his pocket buzzed with Ethan's muffled breath, still connected, still waiting. Mark gritted his teeth and moved toward the stairs. His son was up there, and something was at his window. Every step upward was a war between urgency and fear. His throat was dry, his heart racing as if it might explode. At the landing, he paused. The faintest glow seeped under Ethan's door. Shadows shifted against the crack of light. Mark swallowed hard. He reached for the doorknob, and as his hand closed around the cold metal, a chill ran through his spine. He wasn't sure if he was ready to see what was waiting on the other side. Mark's palm tightened around the knob, slick with rainwater and sweat. He pressed it down slowly, every click of the mechanism sounding far too loud in the dead silence. The door creaked as it opened, and his eyes darted into the room. Ethan was there, curled up on the bed, his knees drawn to his chest, the glow of the small lamp painting his face pale. His wide eyes snapped to the door when Mark entered, and for the first time that night, relief flickered across his face. Dad, Ethan whispered, his voice broken. Mark rushed inside, closing the door softly behind him, crouching next to his son. He gathered him into his arms, feeling how badly the boy was shaking. His small hands clutched fistfuls of Mark's shirt like he was terrified of letting go. It's okay. I'm here now, Mark murmured, pressing a kiss to Ethan's damp hair. You're safe. But Ethan's trembling hand lifted, pointing toward the window. His lips quivered as he spoke again. He's still there. Mark's chest tightened. He turned slowly, following the line of Ethan's finger. The curtain fluttered with the storm's draft, and behind it, silhouetted against the faint glow of the streetlight, a shape stood. Still, watching. Mark's blood ran cold. The figure was close, too close, just beyond the glass. For a heartbeat, Mark couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The sight was paralyzing. Then instinct took over. He set Ethan down gently and strode toward the window. His heart pounded louder with every step, the sound of his pulse filling his ears. He grabbed the curtain and yanked it back. The face that stared back at him made his stomach lurch. It wasn't a stranger. It was Claire. Her hair clung to her face, soaked from the rain. Her eyes, wide, unblinking, fixed not on Mark but on Ethan. She didn't flinch at being discovered. She didn't speak. She simply stood there, lips moving as if whispering something, though no sound carried through the glass. "Claire!" Mark shouted, his voice a mix of shock and fury. He fumbled with the window latch and shoved it open, rain immediately spilling inside. "What the hell are you doing out here?" Still, she didn't answer him. Her gaze never left their son. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, her face twitching with some inner torment. Behind him, Ethan let out a sob, pressing his face into his pillow. "Dad, make her stop. Please." Mark turned back, torn between his wife's unnerving silence and his son's desperate cries. His own stomach knotted with confusion and dread. He'd expected danger, a threat, a stranger. Instead, it was Claire, the woman he had shared a life with for years, the woman who was supposed to protect their child, standing outside like a ghost in the storm. "Claire, talk to me," he demanded, his voice straining against the thunder outside. "You're scaring him. What's going on?" Finally, her lips parted, and her voice cracked through the rain. She paused, swallowing hard, her eyes still locked on Ethan. "He isn't yours, Mark." The words hung in the air like a blade. Mark froze, gripping the window frame as though he needed it to hold him upright. His mind scrambled to process what she had just said. "Not mine?" What the hell was she talking about? Inside the room, Ethan whimpered again, the sound breaking Mark's heart. He turned to his son, then back to Claire, his face twisted in disbelief. "What are you saying?" Mark's voice trembled. "What the hell are you saying, Claire?" But Claire only stood there, rain dripping from her chin, her trembling lips moving again, repeating the words like a curse. "He isn't yours." Mark staggered back from the window, his breath shallow, his world spinning. Ethan clung tighter to the blanket, his terrified eyes flicking between his father and mother, as though he understood more than he should but wished he didn't. The storm outside roared louder, but inside the room, silence pressed heavier than ever. And for the first time that night, Mark realized the figure at the window was only the beginning. The real horror had just begun. The words echoed inside Mark's skull, sharp and poisonous. "He isn't yours." For a moment, he thought maybe the storm outside was playing tricks on his hearing. Maybe the thunder had twisted her voice. Maybe she hadn't said what he thought she said. But when he looked at Claire again, soaked, trembling, her face a mix of guilt and desperation, he knew he'd heard it right. Mark's chest rose and fell in uneven bursts. "What the hell do you mean by that?" His voice cracked, both furious and terrified. Inside the room, Ethan sniffled, clutching the blanket to his chest. He didn't understand the words fully, but he understood the tension, the way his father's voice shook, the way his mother stared at him like she was seeing a ghost. Claire pressed her hand against the glass. Her fingers slid down with the rain, leaving streaks across the window. Her lips trembled. "Mark, he's not your son. Not by blood." The words knocked the breath from his lungs. He staggered back a step, eyes wide. "You're out of your mind," he spat. "You're standing in the rain in the middle of the night, scaring your own son, and now his voice faltered. "Now you're saying this?" Claire's gaze flicked briefly to Mark, but only briefly. Her eyes returned to Ethan, locked on him as if she couldn't bear to look away. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Every time I look at him, I see him." Her voice cracked. "The man I tried to forget." Mark's get twisted. The pieces started shifting, rearranging into a picture he didn't want to see. Late nights at the office. The sudden distance. The cold fights where she accused him of being absent, of not caring. He thought she was just angry, lonely. But maybe it had been more. He shook his head violently. No, you're lying." "Dad." Ethan's voice was so small, so fragile. He peeked over the blanket, his eyes brimming with tears. "What's going on?" Mark's throat tightened. He knelt beside his son, brushing damp hair from his forehead. "Nothing you need to worry about, buddy," he whispered, though his own voice trembled. "I'm right here. You're safe." But Ethan's gaze lingered on his mother at the window. The confusion in his young eyes made Mark's heart ache. He didn't want his son, to carry this burden. Not now. Not ever. Claire's knuckles rapped lightly against the glass, snapping Mark's attention back. "You think I wanted this?" she hissed through the rain. "You think I planned it? I tried to bury it, Mark. I thought I could live with it. But I can't anymore." Her words cut deep, each one sharper than the last. Mark wanted to scream at her, to demand names, details, anything, but Ethan's trembling presence held him back. He couldn't unravel like this, not in front of his boy. "Go home, Claire," Mark said finally, his voice low but trembling with fury. "You're scaring him. You're breaking him. Whatever this is, it doesn't belong here, not now." Claire's face crumpled. For a split second, her mask of defiance slipped and raw anguish spilled through. She pressed her forehead against the glass, rain cascading down her cheeks like tears. "I can't pretend anymore," she whispered, almost to herself. "Not when he looks at me with those eyes." Mark's skin prickled. Those eyes. Ethan's eyes. He thought of the nights Claire had looked away too quickly, the moments she seemed unsettled when Ethan laughed a certain way or tilted his head just so. He'd ignored them, chalked it up to her exhaustion, her stress. But now, her words made them resurface, clearer than ever. Ethan whimpered again, tugging at Mark's sleeve. "Dad, please don't let her in." Mark turned back to his son, feeling his heart split in two. He wrapped his arms around him tightly, shielding him from the window. "I won't," he promised. "I won't ever let her hurt you." Outside, Claire stepped back from the glass, her face half lit by the storm. Her shoulders slumped as if the weight of her own confession was too much to carry. She looked broken, drenched, and yet something in her gaze told Mark this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The storm outside raged like it had no end, but inside Ethan's room, the silence between Mark and Claire was even louder. Rain streamed down the window, blurring her figure into a ghostly silhouette, but her eyes, fixed on Ethan, cut through like shards of glass. Mark tightened his hold on his son, his voice sharp. "Claire, enough. You can't just show up at our son's window in the middle of the night, whisper something like that, and think it's over. If you have something to say, say it." Ethan stirred in his arms, his small hands gripping Mark's shirt. "Dad, I don't like this," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Make her go away." Mark smoothed his son's hair, his own throat tightening. "I'm here. I've got you." Then he turned back to the window, his jaw clenched. "Talk, Claire. Now." Claire pressed both palms against the glass, her rain-slick face twisting with something between guilt and exhaustion. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said, her voice carrying weakly over the storm. "But the truth, it's been eating me alive." Mark's stomach churned. His hands shook as he brushed them over Ethan's back, trying to steady both of them. "What truth?" His voice cracked, half demand, half plea. Claire hesitated. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, and when she finally spoke, her words came out broken, splintered. "It happened years ago, Mark. Before Ethan was born. I was lonely. You were always working, always gone. And I was angry. I let someone in who shouldn't have been there." Mark's pulse thundered in his ears. He felt his legs weaken, his chest tightening as though the air had been sucked from the room. An affair. The word wasn't spoken, but it screamed through every syllable she had just confessed. His grip on Ethan tightened unconsciously, as if anchoring himself. He didn't want to hear more, but he couldn't stop himself from asking. "Who?" Claire's eyes flickered. For the first time, she looked away from Ethan, her gaze dropping to the rain pooling at her feet. "That doesn't matter." Mark's anger surged. "It matters to me." His voice roared louder than the thunder. "You don't get to tear apart my family in the middle of the night, and then tell me the details don't matter." Ethan flinched at the volume, and Mark instantly regretted it. He pulled his son closer, lowering his tone. "I'm sorry, buddy. I didn't mean to scare you." But Ethan was trembling, confused and frightened, his young mind struggling to make sense of words he was too young to understand. Claire's shoulders sagged under the weight of his fury. "I thought I could bury it," she whispered. "I thought if I kept it hidden, it would fade. But every time Ethan looks at me, I see him. The man who isn't you. And I can't live with it anymore." Mark's vision blurred with rage and heartbreak. He wanted to deny it, to tell her she was wrong, to cling to the idea that Ethan was his flesh, his blood, his boy. But Claire's trembling confession gnawed at the fragile threads holding him together. His mind flashed back to moments he'd ignored. Ethan's darker hair, the way strangers sometimes commented that he didn't look much like his dad, Claire's distant stares during family dinners. All the pieces he'd brushed aside now threatened to crush him. Still, Mark forced the words out, his voice rough and raw. I don't care. He's my son. Nothing changes that. At that, Ethan looked up at him, eyes shimmering with tears. Really, Dad? Mark kissed the top of his head, his voice firm despite the storm inside him. Really, nothing will ever change that. Outside, Claire's expression cracked, half pain, half envy. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering. You can lie to yourself all you want, Mark. But I can't. Mark's eyes narrowed. Then why are you here? Why tonight? Why like this? For a moment, Claire didn't answer. The storm filled the silence. Then, her lips parted, and she whispered something that sent another chill crawling down Mark's spine. Because he's back. Mark's body stiffened. What do you mean he's back? Claire's eyes, hollow and haunted, lifted from the ground to the boy in Mark's arms. The man who fathered him. He's back, and he wants to see his son. The word struck like lightning. Mark froze, Ethan clutching him tighter, the boy too young to understand but sensing the terror in the room. The figure at the window had been Claire. But somewhere beyond the storm, someone else lingered, someone whose return threatened to rip their lives apart. And suddenly, Mark realized this night wasn't about a confession. It was about a warning. The room seemed to shrink around Mark as Claire's words hung in the air. He's back. He wants to see his son. Mark's grip on Ethan tightened so fiercely the boy whimpered. He loosened only slightly, stroking his son's damp hair. His voice shook with disbelief. What kind of sick joke is this, Claire? Her soaked figure outside looked ghostly in the storm. She pressed her palms against the window again, eyes wide and desperate. I'm not lying, Mark. He reached out to me last week. I ignored it first, but then he showed up. He knows where we live. He knows Ethan exists. He's not going away. The thunder cracked, rattling the glass between them. Mark's pulse hammered in his ears. The betrayal was one thing, but the thought of another man circling his son like a predator made his blood boil. His voice dropped into something dark and steady. If he comes near this house, I'll kill him. Ethan gasped softly at the venom in his father's tone. He clutched tighter, his young eyes wide, darting between both parents. Dad, what's happening? Ethan whispered. Why is she saying these things? Mark's heart twisted. How could he explain this storm of lies and half-truths to a child? He kissed his son's forehead, whispering, Don't listen to any of it, buddy. None of this changes who you are to me. But Ethan's little voice cracked. Am I yours? The words nearly broke Mark in half. He pulled him close, burying his face in Ethan's shoulder. Yes, always. You're mine. Don't you ever doubt that. From outside, Claire's voice cut in, trembling. You can't just wish away blood, Mark. He's coming whether you like it or not. He wants to claim Ethan. And if you fight him, it won't end well. Mark turned back to her, fury rising like fire in his chest. You brought this into our lives. You lied. You cheated. And now you dare tell me I can't protect my own son? His voice cracked on the last word. What kind of mother does this? Claire's face twisted, rain and tears mingling as she shook her head. You think I wanted it this way? I was weak. I made a mistake, and now it's come back to haunt me. You don't understand how dangerous he is. The words cut differently this time. Not just guilty, terrified. Mark saw it in her eyes, the way her shoulders quaked, the way her lips trembled when she spoke his name. Whoever this man was, he wasn't just a mistake. He was a threat. Mark's voice softened, but only slightly. Then why didn't you tell me sooner? Why wait until tonight? Why scare Ethan like this? Claire's answer was almost a whisper. Because I thought I could handle it alone. But tonight, when I saw his car parked down the street, when I realized he was watching this house, I broke. I couldn't keep it inside anymore. Mark's blood ran cold. He whipped his head toward the window, peering past Claire into the stormy darkness of the street. His heart thudded with paranoia. Was someone out there, watching even now? He pulled the curtain shut with a violent snap, locking out the sight of his wife's broken figure and whatever shadows might linger beyond. He turned back to Ethan, who sat trembling on the bed, clutching the blanket like armor. Mark crouched, placing both hands on his son's shoulders. Listen to me, Ethan. Nothing and no one will ever take you from me. I don't care what she says. I don't care who's out there. You're safe. You'll always be safe with me. Ethan nodded weakly, tears streaking his cheeks. From outside, Claire's muffled voice carried faintly through the closed window. "You don't understand, Mark. If he comes, nothing will stop him." Mark's jaw clenched, rage burning behind his eyes. "Watch me." Because whatever storm was coming, he would face it head on. And if Ethan's so-called real father wanted to step into this house, Mark was ready to destroy him. The curtains swayed softly, but the storm's roar outside couldn't silence Claire's words echoing in Mark's head. "If he comes, nothing will stop him." Mark sat rigid at the edge of Ethan's bed, one arm wrapped protectively around his son, his other hand gripping the baseball bat he'd found in the hallway closet. His eyes scanned the dark room like a soldier on watch. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the house against the storm made his muscles tense. Ethan leaned against him, his small frame trembling. "Dad, is he out there now?" he whispered. Mark kissed the top of his head, though his own throat was tight. "Not while I'm here," he promised. "No one's getting near you." But the truth was, Mark wasn't sure. The thought that someone could be watching, waiting, circling his house in the darkness gnawed at his insides. He wanted to believe Claire was lying or exaggerating, but the haunted look in her eyes had felt real. Too real. Downstairs, a sudden thud echoed through the house. Ethan stiffened. Mark's grip on the bat tightened until his knuckles went white. He rose slowly, pulling Ethan behind him. "Stay here. Don't move until I come back," he whispered firmly. Ethan's eyes widened with fear. "Dad, don't go." Mark forced a thin smile, though his chest ached. "I'll be right back, buddy. Promise." He stepped into the hall, every sense on high alert. The house was pitch dark except for the faint glow spilling from Ethan's door. Mark's footsteps creaked down the stairs, the bat raised, his breath shallow. The silence was broken only by the storm rattling the windows. In the living room, shadows flickered across the walls from passing headlights outside. He scanned every corner, every window. Nothing. But then his eyes caught something that froze him in place. The front door. Wet footprints trailed faintly across the wooden floor. Mark's heart stopped. He'd locked the door when he came in. He was sure of it. But now, a trail of damp prints stretched across the hallway, faint but fresh. His pulse thundered in his ears. He gripped the bat tighter, following the trail carefully. It led not into the living room, not toward the kitchen, but toward the staircase. His stomach dropped. Toward Ethan's room. Mark's breath quickened. He turned on his heel, bolting back up the stairs two at a time. His chest heaved with panic as he burst into Ethan's room. Ethan sat exactly where he'd left him, knees tucked, blanket clutched. His wide eyes blinked at his father. "Dad!" Mark scanned the room frantically, bat raised. No one else was there. The window was still closed. But the unease clawed at him. The footprints hadn't been his. Someone had been inside. He shut the door, locked it, and dragged a chair beneath the handle. Then he pulled Ethan into his lap, rocking him gently though his own body trembled. "It's okay," he whispered. "I've got you." But Ethan's eyes darted nervously toward the window again. "What if Mom lets him in?" he whispered. Mark stiffened. Through the curtain, Claire's silhouette was still faintly visible, a shadow in the storm. She hadn't moved much since her confession. But the thought struck Mark like ice. If she was desperate enough, broken enough, would she bring the man here herself? Mark clenched his jaw, holding Ethan tighter. "She won't," he said, more to himself than to his son. Yet inside, doubt spread like poison. The storm raged, the house groaned, and Mark sat in the dark with his son, every second stretching into eternity. He knew this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about survival. And somewhere out there, hidden in the storm, the real danger was waiting. The storm howled outside, rattling the glass panes like fragile bones. Mark sat rigid in the chair wedged beneath Ethan's door handle, the baseball bat leaning against his leg. Ethan dozed fitfully against his chest, his little hand still gripping his shirt as if afraid he might vanish if he let go. But Mark didn't sleep. He couldn't. His mind raced with the image of those wet footprints across the hallway floor. He had replayed it 100 times in his head. They weren't his. They weren't Ethan's. And Claire had been outside the entire time, which meant only one thing. Someone else had been in the house. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the curtain that hid Claire's shadow. She hadn't moved for what felt like hours, her soaked silhouette hunched, unmoving. But Mark no longer knew if she was there out of guilt or waiting for something. The phone on his nightstand buzzed suddenly, vibrating loud in the quiet room. Mark jolted, nearly waking Ethan. He reached over quickly, silencing it before the sound carried. His breath caught when he saw the screen. An unknown number. His thumb hovered, dread knotting his stomach. Slowly, he swiped to open it. A text appeared, stark against the glow of the screen. "You can't keep him from me forever." Mark's blood froze. His eyes flicked instantly toward the window. Claire hadn't moved, but the message couldn't have come from her. Another vibration. He deserves to know the truth. "I'll be back for him." Mark's grip on the phone tightened until his knuckles whitened. Rage boiled beneath his skin, but fear seeped in just as strong. Whoever this man was, he wasn't just real. He was watching them. He was close enough to know exactly what was happening tonight. Mark's gaze shifted to Claire's faint outline through the curtain. The timing was too precise, too deliberate. Was she still in contact with him? Had she let him hear? Mark's jaw clenched as thunder shook the walls. He leaned down, whispering into Ethan's hair. "It's okay. I've got you." But Ethan stirred, his eyes half opening. "Dad? What's wrong?" "Nothing," Mark whispered quickly, forcing calm into his voice. "Go back to sleep, buddy. I'm here." Ethan's eyes flickered toward the window. "Is Mom still there?" Mark hesitated. "Yes, but don't worry about her right now." The boy turned his face into Mark's chest, murmuring, "I don't want her to take me." The words sliced through Mark like a blade. He pressed his lips to his son's head, whispering fiercely, "She won't. No one will." Another vibration from the phone. This time, no words, just a picture. Mark's breath caught when he opened it. It was Ethan's soccer practice from last week. Ethan on the field, laughing, kicking the ball. Taken from a distance. His stomach dropped. The man wasn't just watching tonight. He had been watching for days. Maybe longer. Mark stood abruptly, setting Ethan gently on the bed and crossing to the window. He yanked the curtain open. Claire's face appeared, pale under the stormlight, her eyes locking instantly on him. Her lips moved, barely visible through the glass. "He's here." Mark's hand slammed against the glass. "Where?" he hissed, though she couldn't hear him. "Where is he?" Claire shook her head, tears streaking her rain-soaked face. She mouthed again, "You can't stop him." Mark's fury surged. He slammed the curtain shut, his chest heaving. His grip tightened on the bat as he returned to Ethan's side. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a hunt. And Mark knew one thing with absolute clarity. If the man came for his son, it wouldn't be Ethan who was taken. It would be the man's blood on the floor. The glow of the phone still burned in Mark's hand, the image of Ethan at soccer practice etched into his mind. Proof. Proof the man had been close, watching, waiting. His stomach twisted as he imagined those eyes tracking his son for weeks. Ethan stirred restlessly on the bed, clutching the blanket tighter. Mark sat beside him, the baseball bat balanced across his lap, his gaze fixed on the door. He didn't dare close his eyes. Downstairs, the wind howled through the chimney, whistling like a warning. But beneath it, Mark swore he heard something else. A faint scrape, a deliberate sound. His body tensed. He rose slowly, every muscle on edge. He leaned down, whispering into Ethan's ear. "Stay here. Don't open the door for anyone but me." Ethan's eyes widened with fear. "Dad, no." Mark squeezed his hand firmly. "I'll be right back." He pulled the chair away from the door and stepped into the hallway, bat in hand. The house was darker than before, shadows stretching across the walls. Lightning flashed through the windows, illuminating every corner for a split second at a time. The scrape came again, louder this time, from a back door. Mark's pulse thundered in his ears. He moved down the stairs carefully, every creak of the wood threatening to give him away. His grip on the bat tightened. As he neared the kitchen, the sound grew clearer, the metallic twist of a lock being tested. Someone was trying to get inside. Mark's breath hitched. He pressed himself against the wall, straining to listen. The handle rattled once, then went still. Silence pressed and heavy, broken only by the storm. Then, from the other side of the door, came a low voice. "I just want to see him." Mark's blood froze. The voice wasn't a whisper. It was calm, measured, almost pleading. But underneath it was something colder. Possessive. Mark's knuckles whitened around the bat. He wanted to throw the door open, to confront the man face to face. But he forced himself still, remembering Ethan upstairs, waiting, terrified. One wrong move, and a man could slip inside. The voice came again, closer, pressed against the wood. "He deserves the truth, Mark. You've been lying to him his whole life. You can't keep him from me." Mark's chest heaved. He wanted to shout back, to tell him to leave, to threaten him. But silence felt safer, for now. A shadow shifted against the curtain covering the back door window. Broad shoulders, a tall frame. Lightning flashed again, illuminating the outline. The man lingered there for a moment, breathing against the glass. Then, just as suddenly as he had come, he stepped back into the storm and disappeared into the darkness. Mark remained frozen, every nerve buzzing. His breath came in sharp bursts. Slowly, he backed away from the door, his mind racing. He couldn't stay passive anymore. The man knew the house. He was circling like a wolf, testing for weakness. Mark climbed the stairs again, his legs heavy but his grip on the bat iron strong. He pushed back into Ethan's room, locking the door once more. Ethan sat up instantly, eyes wide. Was it him? Mark swallowed hard, pulling his son close. Yes, but he's gone now. Ethan's small body shook as he clung tighter. "Dad, what if he comes back?" Mark's jaw clenched. He stared at the window, at Claire's faint silhouette still unmoving outside. His voice dropped into something steady, cold, and certain. "Then I'll be ready." Because now it was clear, this wasn't just a night of confessions. This was a siege, and Mark was preparing for war. The house felt like it was holding its breath. Mark sat stiffly on the edge of Ethan's bed, the baseball bat balanced across his knees, his free hand resting on his son's back. Ethan's eyes were closed, but his breathing came in quick, uneven bursts. Sleep wasn't coming, not tonight. Mark's own mind was a storm as loud as the one battering the windows. The image of the man's shadow at the back door burned behind his eyes. His voice, calm, almost reasonable, haunted him. "You can't keep him from me." Lightning cracked, illuminating the curtains for a split second. Claire's shadow was still there, hunched, unmoving, watching. Mark didn't know if she was guarding them or waiting for the man to return. Then, from downstairs, a sound shattered the silence. Glass breaking. Mark's body tensed instantly. He stood, gripping the bat, his heart hammering so hard he could barely hear anything else. Ethan bolted upright, eyes wide. "Dad!" Mark crouched quickly, cupping his son's face in both hands. His voice was steady but urgent. "Listen to me, Ethan. You stay here. You don't open this door for anyone but me. No matter what you hear. Understand?" Tears welled in the boy's eyes, but he nodded. "Don't leave me." Mark's throat tightened, but he forced a nod. "I'll be back. I promise." He locked the door behind him, dragging the chair tight under the handle. Then he stepped in a hallway, bat raised, every nerve screaming. The storm masked the sounds at first, but as he crept down the stairs, the noises grew sharper, shards crunching under boots, the faint creak of the floor. Someone was inside. Mark's chest heaved as he reached the bottom step. He pressed himself against the wall, straining to see. A figure moved through the living room, tall, broad-shouldered, his silhouette shifting with each flash of lightning. Mark's grip on the bat tightened until his hands ached. The man's voice carried through the dark, low and deliberate. "Ethan." The sound of his son's name on that stranger's lips sent fury tearing through Mark's chest. He stepped out of the shadows, bat raised high. "Stay away from him." The man froze, turning slowly. For the first time, Mark saw his face. Sharp jaw, dark hair plastered to his forehead from the storm, eyes cold but steady. He didn't flinch at the sight of the bat. "You must be Mark," the man said calmly. "I'm not here to hurt him. I just want to see my son." Mark's vision blurred red. "He's not your son." The man tilted his head, almost pitying. "You know that isn't true." His eyes glinted in the dark. "You've been living a lie. He deserves to know where he comes from." Mark's chest heaved. "He deserves safety, and you'll never give him that." The man took a slow step forward. "You can't stop this." Blood calls to blood. Whether tonight or later, he'll know. And when he does, he'll come to me. Mark raised the bat higher, fury trembling through his body. Take one more step, and I swear I'll end you. For a long, tense moment, the two men stared at each other, one fueled by obsession, the other by love and fear. The storm outside raged louder, rattling the windows as if the house itself knew what was coming. Then, somewhere upstairs, Ethan cried out, "Dad!" Both men whipped their heads toward the sound. The intruder smirked faintly. He called for you, but soon he'll call for me. Rage ignited in Mark's chest like fire. He lunged forward, swinging the bat with everything he had. The clash had begun. The bat cracked through the air, slamming against the stranger's arm with a sickening thud. He staggered back, grunting but didn't fall. His eyes burned with rage as he steadied himself. Mark planted his feet, chest heaving, bat raised for another strike. "Get out of my house." The intruder's lips curled into a snarl. "This isn't your house anymore, Mark. You've been living in my shadow for years, and now I'm taking back what's mine." Lightning flared, casting the man's face into sharp relief. His features were strikingly familiar. Ethan's jawline, the same deep-set eyes. The resemblance hit Mark like a hammer. The truth he had fought so hard to deny now stared him straight in the face. Mark's hands trembled around the bat, but he forced his voice steady. "You think blood makes you a father? You don't know him. You weren't there for his first steps, his first words, the nights he woke up crying. You don't know a damn thing about him." The man stepped forward, unfazed by the threat. His voice was low, menacing. "And you think bedtime stories erase the truth? He'll see me, and he'll know. You can't change what he is." Mark's rage boiled over. He swung again, this time catching the man's ribs. The intruder roared, lunging forward, grappling the bat with both hands. The two men struggled violently, grunting, slamming into the furniture. A lamp toppled, shattering against the floor. Upstairs, Ethan's terrified cries echoed. "Dad! Dad!" The sound fueled Mark's strength. He wrenched the bat free and shoved the man backward, sending him crashing into the coffee table. Shards of wood splintered under his weight. For a moment, silence fell, broken only by thunder and both men's ragged breathing. Then, from the broken window, Claire's voice pierced the night. "Stop!" Both men turned. She had forced her way inside, dripping wet, her face pale with fear. She stood between them, trembling, her eyes darting from one to the other. "This has to end," she said, her voice cracking. "Please, Mark, please don't make it worse." Mark's chest heaved as he glared at her. "You brought this here. You lied to me. And now he's in my house, threatening my son." Claire's eyes brimmed with tears. "He's our son. You've raised him, yes, but he's his too. I can't change that." The intruder pushed himself up slowly, blood trickling from his lip. His smile was twisted, mocking. "You hear that, Mark? Even she knows the truth. You've been nothing but a placeholder." Mark's grip on the bat tightened. "Say that again," he growled, his voice shaking with fury. The man straightened, meeting his gaze with chilling calm. "You were never his real father." Something inside Mark snapped. He charged, swinging wildly, but Claire threw herself between them. "Stop it," she screamed. "If you kill him, you'll lose Ethan forever." Mark froze, his chest heaving, the bat trembling inches from her. His eyes darted to Ethan at the top of the stairs, clutching the railing, his face pale with terror. "Dad!" Ethan's voice cracked, fragile. "Don't go." The word "Dad" cut through the chaos like a blade. Mark lowered the bat slowly, his chest burning with emotion. He turned toward Ethan, his voice breaking. "I'm right here, buddy. I'm not going anywhere." The intruder sneered. "Pathetic. You think words will keep him? The truth will tear him away from you." But in that moment, Mark saw Ethan's tear-filled eyes, saw the boy clinging to him, not to the man who shared his blood. And he realized something. The fight wasn't about DNA. It was about love. Mark lifted the bat again, his gaze locked on the intruder. His voice was steady, ice-cold. "You'll never take him. Not while I'm still breathing." The storm outside thundered as if to punctuate his words. The battle wasn't over. But Mark knew now. He was ready to end it. The storm outside battered the house, thunder shaking the walls as if nature itself demanded an ending. Mark stood in the living room, chest heaving, the baseball bat trembling in his hands. Across from him, the intruder, Ethan's biological father, straightened with a sinister calm, blood at the corner of his mouth. Between them, Claire hovered, soaked and trembling, her voice breaking as she pleaded for control she no longer had. Ethan stood frozen on the stairs, his small frame silhouetted against the faint hallway light. His eyes, wide, wet, terrified, bounced between the three adults as though trying to piece together a nightmare too big for him to understand. Mark's voice cut through the chaos, ragged but unyielding. "This ends tonight." The intruder smirked faintly, his voice low and venomous. "You're already finished, Mark. You can't erase blood. One day he'll see the truth, and when he does, he'll come to me." Mark's hand shook, but not with fear, with fury. He's already seen the truth. "I'm the one who's here. I'm the one he calls Dad. You? You're nothing but a stranger who thinks blood is enough." The man's eyes darkened, and in an instant, he lunged. The two men collided violently, the bat clattering to the floor as they grappled. Furniture toppled, glass shattered, the room filling with the sounds of fists and fury. "Stop!" Claire screamed, but her voice was lost in the storm of violence. Mark fought with a desperation that came not from anger, but from love, the love for the boy watching from the stairs. Each punch, each shove was fueled by the promise he had made. "No one will take you from me." The intruder pinned him against the wall, his grip tight around Mark's throat. Mark clawed, his vision blurring. "He's mine," the man hissed. And then, a voice, soft but steady, cut through everything. "Dad!" Both men froze. Ethan's voice trembled, but there was clarity in it. His small hands clutched the railing, his eyes locked on Mark. "Dad, please don't let him take me." The intruder's grip faltered just for a second. That second was enough. Mark shoved him off, gasping for breath, and reached for the bat. With one final swing, he knocked the man to the floor. The intruder groaned, clutching his side, defeated. Mark stood over him, chest heaving, bat raised. For a moment, it seemed he might end it there. But then his eyes flicked to Ethan, his son, watching in horror. Mark dropped the bat. "This isn't about me and you," he said, voice low but steady. "This is about him, and you'll never win. Because he's already chosen." The man sneered from the floor, but the fight was gone from his eyes. Claire sank to her knees, sobbing, the weight of her choices pressing down on her like the storm. Mark turned to the stairs, holding his arms open. Ethan ran into them, burying his face against his chest, sobbing. Mark kissed the top of his head, whispering fiercely, "You're safe. You'll always be safe with me." The storm raged on, but inside the house, a fragile calm settled. Claire remained in the shadows, her confession hanging in the air like a wound that would never fully heal. The intruder lay broken, his power stripped not by fists, but by the bond between father and son. Mark carried Ethan upstairs, tucking him into bed. The boy's eyes were still wet, but his breathing steadied as Mark sat beside him, stroking his hair. "No one will take you from me," Mark whispered. "Not now, not ever." Ethan's voice was small, but certain. "You're my dad." Tears blurred Mark's vision as he pressed his forehead against his son's. "Always." Downstairs, the storm began to ease. But the scars of a night would remain, a reminder that blood might shape beginnings, but love defined the end. And as Mark held Ethan close, he knew one thing with unshakable certainty. No matter the lies, no matter the betrayal, no matter the shadows lurking outside his window, this boy was his. Forever.